Welcome back to the Girl Power Alliance podcast. I couldn't be more excited about my guest today. I'm first of all been fangirling her ever since I met her husband, and you guys are gonna fall in love with her when we get to her story. But she is a music genius. She has the voice of an angel. She's done a
Oh,
lot of things. She has had a Billboard chart topping album. She was the voice on Glee for many years. I don't know if you're going to want to talk about that. She's written huge uh, songs and sang on television commercials and movies. Matter of fact, right now, her song and her voice are the opening song for the movie on Netflix that just came out, Irish Wish, amongst many other things. I'm so excited to have her on today on the podcast. Welcome, Nikki
thanks for having me. I'm
Leonti.
so excited.
Leonti?
Yes, perfect.
Do you,
Leonti.
do you go by that or Edgar?
Most of the time, people still go by Leonti,
Okay.
but I do hyphenate at times with the Edgar.
But that's your like professional name is Nikki Leonti.
Yes, yes. I have.
One of the things I didn't say, which is where my husband and I binged fangirling, was you, your husband, and your oldest daughter were all on America's Got Talent and made it really far.
Yeah, it was wild. It
That's a
was
fun
so wild.
experience.
Yes, it was unexpected. I used to be a youth mentor with one of the producers of the show.
How funny.
And he reached out. He had heard my family sing a Christmas song together, and he had suggested we come on the show. It wasn't something we were looking to do. And we just, like so many things in the music industry, are like, all right, let's take this ride. Let's do it and see what happens. And we had a lot of fun. We didn't really pursue anything after that. We were asked to do like reality shows and a few things, and it wasn't the timing. And so we kind of just went back. We do a lot of behind the scenes work and just started doing that again. So,
Well, okay, we could go so many places because you've had such a even at your age, you're so young still, and you have had you've had a vast career. But what really struck me was so I met Nikki's husband at an event in Georgia just recently. Here I am, just like knowing nothing about anything, listening to him sing, and I was telling that some of the people I was like, "Who is this guy?" Like, I don't even want to. I can't sing. It is the thing that when I get to heaven, it is going to be probably my second or third question as to why God did not give me that gift because I wanted it. I really wanted that gift to be able to have a voice like you have and like your husband and I think your kids must have come out of the womb literally just harmonizing to you guys with this
yes.
amazing DNA. But I'm listening to him and as I'm saying, wow, he's amazing. He's so talented. Everybody kept saying, well, you have to hear his wife. His wife is like even more talented than him. The two of them together are amazing. So when I came home for the event, I was telling my husband, oh, you have to hear this guy. And of course, then we started fangirling on the two of you, watching all of the episodes on AGT, every single
Oh,
thing we could find on YouTube. I'm binging on Spotify. And I heard a little bit of your background story, which nobody had told me and I didn't know before then because I listened to you on Matt Rogers' podcast and you talked about being a teen mom, and that's of course my story. And I would love to maybe just start there. So here you are. How old were you? You had a record deal in the as a Christian artist. Can you just tell a little bit of that backstory?
yeah. I signed my first record deal at the age of 13.
Wow.
And yes, so random, so wild. I won a singing contest in California. And the winner of the contest gets a cruise, and you can make a record on an independent company. And so I made a Christian album, and that album got into the hands of a record label in Nashville. And so by the time I was 15, I had signed with a major Christian label and just started touring the world at that point. I was, on the charts, like you said. I had 4 top 5 singles and a number one song. And so things were really taking off for me. And I was also an abstinence speaker, which is difficult when I get ready to tell you what happened. And ended up, meeting someone at the age of 17. I had never had like a boyfriend before. And before I knew it, I mean, things progressed rather quickly. And I found out that I was pregnant, with my daughter, Jaslyn. And so I knew then that, there was not many options for someone in that situation in Christian music. And it's either maybe try to say it's a elope honeymoon baby, it's a go and terminate the pregnancy option, or have the child and be done in the industry. And so for me, it was it took a week to go back and forth in my brain, and then I knew that I needed to go ahead with it. And I was on a tour at the time called like Freedom Blast with all these Christian artists, and I had to tell them I'm pregnant and this is what's happening. They were very kind in that situation. And I got off the road immediately, and then I was sick and pregnant, and then everything came to a screeching halt.
Did you get blackballed?
Yeah. It was my label when I started getting all these sessions in Nashville during that time because I had to survive. And so then a buzz started happening about the recording work that I was doing in Nashville when I was pregnant and after I had my daughter. And so they came back and actually extended my contract to do one more Christian record. And I'd made another Christian album. But the thing is that there was just no way possible to promote it when, the radio stations had taken it off the air. The retail outlets had taken it off their shelves, and then just venues and churches wouldn't have me in anymore. So for me, it became so painful on a weekly basis to hear of being canceled again you have hundreds and hundreds or thousands of opportunities to be canceled. It's like, this church doesn't want you. They found out. This place won't play you. And so I was like, at that point, I was feeling really fragile with the whole situation and navigating through a really painful marriage. So I decided to not put myself through it anymore.
It's really an interesting dynamic that happens. It obviously, we're lovers and followers of Jesus, but the Christian community,
Right.
I have found to be some of the most, they're the original cancel culture, right? Like you were getting canceled before people knew it was a thing, literally. And
Right.
they can be very cruel. Now, I'm a lot older than you, and this was in the 90s. I wasn't a star. I didn't have any fame or notoriety. So the cancellation of who I was at the time felt a lot smaller. It was just within my family. And, my father was kind of like an anti-abortion advocate and like really loud about it. And then he finds out that I'm pregnant. And of course, you're going to ruin your life. You need to have an abortion
Oh,
grew up in a Christian home. My family is all, I don't know anything other than growing up in a Christian home. And of course, my whole family was all so disappointed and everybody was so upset. And I was going to have an abortion. I took my pregnancy test at Planned Parenthood. I had a time to go in and have an abortion. When push came to shove, I couldn't do it. Even
yeah.
as a young girl, I was 16. And you've walked the road. It's not an easy road. But the cancellation for me in the Christian community happened many, many years later. So now I have 3 kids. They're all grown. We're empty nesters. And my son is gay. And when I began to talk about that publicly and how I love him and accept him, I got canceled everywhere.
Woo.
Still, I have to still be very careful about when and how I bring the topic up because it's so polarizing and it's hurtful to me. And it's part of who I am. And I would venture to guess this is true. I'd like to hear this about you. It's made me a little rebellious because I'm so anti-religion. I'm so anti this religious bondage that people are under because, it's like the very people that we feel called to serve are the ones that can be the cruelest with their words and the things they've said. Even within my company, I started my company in 2020 and have used phrases and wording that was such trigger points, like talking about doing yoga once. And I was just talking. I literally didn't even say yoga. I said met Jesus at the mat today because I had taken a class early that morning. I am not new age. I'm not into any of that. I don't know if yoga in California is different than other places, but I never went somewhere where it was spiritual. It was just like moving your body. And
Right.
I had about 100 women cancel that day because on a call, I casually mentioned that I was doing something at the mat. And these are the people I feel called to serve. So I know your experience was like 10x that.
I get all of that, by the way. And it resonates with me. I am anti that kind of toxic religion and judgment. And, you've walked through it. I've walked through it in my own way. And even having a gay brother, and what that means, there are just so many ways that you can see people not take the opportunity to extend love and compassion and understanding to those who need it the most. And it's disheartening.
It's been soul crushing to me
Mm-hmm.
because before starting this company I was pretty bold about my support of my son and again, I'm not waving a flag, I'm not doing things like that, but
Right.
he's my boy. You have boys, he's my boy, he's my son, my only son.
Yes.
I love him with my whole heart. And
Yes.
I have had people call me out, I've had people leave me. I had an organization that I wanted to align with to be like my company's charitable, like the company that we used to raise money for. And when they found out I had a gay son, they told me that they did not want to be a part of my event, which okay, like it's a journey. I get it where people are at. Maybe they were afraid, but I said, you know what, I understand, but we'd still like to direct all of our fundraising efforts towards what you're doing because I really believed in what they were doing. They told me, no, what we're saying is we don't want your money. They didn't want to be connected with me so badly because I have a gay son and I'm not basically saying he's going to burn in hell. I don't support him unless he gets straight. I'm not going to have him in my life. Unless I did that, there are a whole sect of people that don't want to associate with me. Anyway, all of that to say, it's just,
Jeez.
it's wild.
That kind of stuff. That's why I speak up and speak
Yeah.
out. It's for those reasons that need to stop, where people can feel like they are loved and accepted, especially in the church.
Especially in the church.
Yeah.
I would venture to guess that now, I mean, here you are, you're married, you have a beautiful family. You guys are just amazing. I love your new song that you guys just released, by the way. My husband and my 22 wedding anniversary is in 2 days. And I'm like, that could be our song. That's a perfect
Yes.
song.
Oh, I
Available
love
on
it.
Spotify and everywhere, by the way, right now, if you guys want to find them. And Ryan and Nikki, amazing. You guys are, I mean, it's unfair how much talent you guys have in one house.
Thank you so much.
And so do you want to just give like, what are you doing now? I mean, you've done so much. What are you the most passionate about right now? What is like lighting you up?
Ooh, okay. I would say these kind of conversations are what I get excited about and what we just talked about, because I feel like at this point in my life, there was a long period of time where I stayed silent and afraid of my story.
Same.
And it's just because of the reactions or, a lot of times people would be like, well, I get that you were married and divorced by 21, but I actually did it again. I got married and divorced by 26. I had 2 baby daddies and all of this trauma circling around what my life was. And it was just me trying to find a sense of security in my life. And I didn't know how to do it. I was escaping a very traumatic marriage to a guy who was arrested multiple times for sexual deviancy. And it's like people just didn't understand. Yeah, it was really bad. And he's since been married 4 times and has hurt a lot of women doing the same thing. And it was unfortunate and
Praise God you got out of
traumatizing.
that.
I escaped out of it. There were times he would unplug things in my car and it would stop a block down the road. And I'd have to literally race back to my house to tell him, what did you do? And he'd throw my keys in a field. Like I'm digging through grass going,
Like a movie.
I can't let this be my life. He hit me with a vehicle in a parking lot and flipped me over. And I was in the hospital for 2 days, not awake. And, just things that I didn't ever talk about. I'm going to be in this documentary coming out at the end of this year, next year, about 90s, like Christian artists and 2000s. And I just finally ripped the whole thing open of what happened to me in Christian music and how I was treated as well. This, along with different artists like Sixpence None the Richer, Lee Nash, Krista Lewis, Jennifer Knapp, all the people back then who had names, we all got together and we made this documentary about how we were treated and by people in the industry. And that's a huge step for me of showing where I'm at and how much I'm okay with people's perceptions and them disagreeing with me or judging me. I'm going, you know what? I'd rather honor the truth of my story and what my calling is than fear how you're going to react to the truth, because the truth doesn't change. So let's just go all in with it. And that's where I'm at. I'm in this stage for the first time where I'm like, I'm going to be fearless.
Yeah.
And share that my husband now, who I've been married to for 10 years, is my third husband. He's the third, father that's been in my life. And it's fantastic. And you can change your story. God can rewrite something for you that's better than anything you can imagine. And no matter how, crazy and wild it looks, that you can have a situation in your life turn around and become something just really awesome. It's not easy, but it can be a really redemptive story for you.
And you're there. One of the things I like to say is that your truth, we've all heard like the truth will set you free, which is true. When you begin to speak your truth, it's like you unlock this thing that the enemy has held over you for decades. He's held it over you because you're of all this fear of what happens when they know the whole story? What happens when they hear the ugly details?
Right.
So he holds it over us. But the moment you speak, you're set free. But there's this other layer that when you speak, when you share your story without shame and just here is exactly what happened, that your truth actually sets other people free.
Yes.
You give other people permission to be authentically who they are. And the moment we do that, we literally unchain the shackles that the enemy has held on us and
Yes.
has kept us stuck. People are so stuck because of their story, because of decisions that they made. Like I willingly made decisions that put me in that position. I wasn't raped. I wasn't molested. I had sex as a teenager and got pregnant and got married. I didn't we chose these things, but there's so much shame because why though? What is it that we're so afraid of about other people thinking things about us? Because I did hair for 10 years. I stood behind a chair. I listened to women for 10 years, the first part of my career. They're all talking about stuff. Like no matter what you do, they're talking. And the talk does nothing. I don't know why we're so afraid of it.
Right. No, and that's, when you asked where I'm at in my life right now, it really is the power of a testimony, overcoming by the power of our testimony. And I remember I grew up idolizing Maya Angelou's poetry and writings. And it wasn't until later on that I read her real story and just these things that you would never think, like someone who made such an impact and did something so great, at least in my mind at that time. How could she be so open with, the choices that she made that would embarrass so many people?
Yeah.
But her bravery in saying, I did this and that, and some people would go, oh, my goodness, and gasp at the thought of these things that would be so shamed. But what it did for me is say, if she can be brave and bold and step out and have this insane purpose that she fulfills and walks in, and having this past, like I can do it too. And that was the power of someone else sharing what is real to them without being ashamed.
It's so profound. And to have somebody like you, I mean, you're beautiful. You're just dripping with talent. You've had incredible levels of success. And so from the outside looking in, if people look at you today, they look at your life and they're just like, oh, she has it so easy. She's so lucky. Look at all these things. And then when you open the door and you show them, here are the things that I have walked through. I think it's truly the most inspiring thing that you can do with your whole life is by opening it up and sharing it. And it takes tremendous amounts of courage, because I remember when I started podcasting in 2017, not this podcast, my first one. And I remember telling my husband, I mean, I'd been speaking and talking to people at that point for years, but there was something different about going so deep with things about me. And I told him, I feel naked. It's this feeling of like such vulnerability that you're literally walking outside naked and going, okay, take your shot. And it feels very, very scary in the beginning, but then something flips. It's like as soon as you do it, God begins to, I think, to give you armor, like plates of armor over every vulnerable place in your body, that once you begin to speak about it, it no longer becomes a tool that can be used against you.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
Are you finding that where you're at today? So the documentary then, is this the first time you're talking? So you've been talking about being a teen mom, I would venture to guess. It's not like something we can hide.
Right.
You know what I
right.
mean? So you've been talking about that all along. So with this new documentary that's coming out, by the way, where is it coming out, and how can we be prepared to watch it?
We will know soon, but they're in negotiations with companies right now that are
Okay, so you're shopping it?
Yeah, well, the guy who is the editor and executive producer, they've had, a couple offers and they're just walking through that, but it will be out, and it's going to be in a film festival. So I'm not at liberty to say yet, but it will be out. Yes.
Cool. I can't wait to watch that. I'm sure it's going to be very eye-opening, and, again, uncovering things so that other people don't have to walk through it, and, giving people the ability to shorten the learning curve, or to not have to be put through the same things. And as the Christian community, like we started saying at the beginning, can be the hardest. And it's like, there's a bunch of things. First of all, we were made to worship. Like, God built in us this desire to worship, and we misplace it by putting worship on artists, actors, pastors. And so when they do something that isn't in alignment with this perfect life that everybody wants you to live, everyone is just crushed, and you have to cancel them and get rid of them. But what's the truth? Not one of us has lived a perfect. Nobody has had this perfect life where they've never made mistakes. So it's partially our fault for putting people on this pedestal and expecting them to be perfect. And when they aren't perfect, then we crush them.
Yeah, right. Or what I've seen is, I've been, on podcasts before where it's like they want to still wrap up the story with a bow. And it's like, she chose life for her daughter, and now look at where they're at now. As if, and that was how it was in the church growing up too. Like, you could sin, but that's all the old days. And this is who I am now. And look what God did. And life is just so easy and great. And what I try to correct in certain interviews is that, yes, I did choose life for my daughter, and it was the best decision I could have made. But I felt so much rejection after choosing life, and felt so abandoned by God in those moments because of how people treated me, that I went on to actually have an abortion. And I can't get on and just say, look, I chose life, and I'm the great mom, and I, look at me. No, because the truth is that I went on and I didn't do that. And I nearly died from a terrible abortion procedure, and I had to get blood transfusions, and my life was messier after the things that I was judged for. The things I was judged for were the easy stuff, the things that people knew about. The things people didn't know about were really, really, really difficult and hard. And so I can't allow myself to be reframed as this just like poster story from A to B, and here we go. It's like, no, it's really hard. And I did find my forever person, but that's been really hard. And we've put in the work, and we've been to tons of therapy, and we're still in therapy. And I say we're still probably going to keep checking in with therapy forever, because it helps us, and it helps us be better communicators and deal with our pasts and our baggage and the things that we came into this marriage with. It is absolutely not perfect, but God has given us like the tools and the resources and the strength to make it through. And that's just the absolute truth of it.
And that's everybody's story, but they don't want to talk
Right.
about it.
Don't
And
want
I
to
would
talk.
venture to say, and I know that maybe this is, if you're not a believer and you're listening to this, don't let this discourage you. But I would venture to say that a life as a believer is way harder than the life of not a believer, because I believe, when I look at my life and all of the mistakes I've made, all the things I've walked through, I don't think that they were the enemy attacking me. I truly
Right.
believe it was God purposefully allowing things to happen in my life to develop certain things in me for the thing that he has me built for, which is now. And
Right.
it is super hard. It's
Super
really hard.
hard.
Blending a we could do a whole podcast on blended family. That's like really
No,
messed up.
it's so hard.
It's so hard. Bobby and I have been together for 24 years, and I had been single for over 6. It'd been almost 7 years I had been single. And I basically felt like, because I chose to get a divorce, God hates divorce. I was never going to be with anybody again. I was
Yeah.
undesirable, all the things. So I meet Bobby, we met on a blind date. We, fell in love, get married, whatever. We were together like 9 years together, which means we were married for 7, 9 years, where I finally had this thought, we might make it. And we
Yeah.
were like, we loved each other, and it was super hard. The blending of the families. My third is his first. And there was a whole many years of, you already know, I don't even need to tell you. It's why the divorce rate is so high with blended families, because it's not easy.
So stressful. I think third marriages have like an 80% fail rate. It's like, well, I guess I'm that 20, but it's funny you say that, because around year 8 with my husband, I looked at him in the car and I said, babe, I think I'm going to be with you forever. And he
Get
looked
that.
at me like, you're just now figuring this out. I'm his first spouse. But he said, you're just figuring this out. I said, no, my heart always knew this was special, but I think that I was still living in some of the past and the
Yes.
fear. And
Yes.
is this all just going to
Yes.
blow up in my face again? And now I
Yes.
know, I'm like, oh, you're my person. Welcome. So I think we're going to renew our vows or something, because now I feel like I really know him, and I didn't.
I've been begging Bobby to do this. Actually, what I told him when we got married was I wanted to renew our vows every year on our anniversary. And he just looked at me like I was wacko. And so I have been begging, one of these days I'm going to get him to do it. But I really know that feeling. And it's not that you were like waiting. It wasn't consciously waiting, but it kind of was. And I feel like in that moment, like you're saying, I didn't say it out loud. I wasn't something I say, but I remember distinctly this moment, having this moment where I was like, I think this actually might last. And it
Yeah.
was like, in that moment, I was able to, I think, receive from him in a different way.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, then it opens up your whole relationship. And I think that it is what happens with human beings with Jesus, because we don't actually know how to receive what he's offering, because there's nothing in the whole world that we've ever experienced that is so unconditional, that requires nothing of us except just to be.
Yes.
And then he just pours it out, and it's incomprehensible because nothing works like that.
No, I love that. And I always tell my husband that he was the first extension of that heart of Jesus.
Yes.
That I hadn't experienced purely in the real world, as far as, I felt like my baggage was so crazy. I had guys that were like, 2, like I'd be your third. I don't know about that. Like, just constantly. Well, even someone I had dated for months and months still was like, I'm sorry, I still can't get over that it happened twice. And that was, my daughter would say, did you drop the mom bomb yet? Tell him, I was like, yeah. And so all these things kept making me feel like I should be ashamed or something. And to me, it just felt like family. It just felt like my life. It felt great. And then I meet my husband, who had just gotten out of a 5-year relationship with a virgin, who, they were doing all the things right. And she had, all this success in music, and on paper it looked great. And he said, my heart just couldn't jump yet. It still felt like maybe this wasn't it yet. And then he met me, and within 2 months, he's like, you're the one.
Oh,
And I was like, I feel like that's how Jesus is. And it was like, with all the baggage and with all the things that I brought in and everything, he's like, no, you're the one.
oh,
You're the one my heart desires. You're the one my heart longs for. My husband said, do you have any more kids? I'll take them too. I don't care anything that you've done. He never made it weird. He adopted my daughter, and her birth certificate says his name on it as if nothing ever existed before that.
beautiful.
Yeah, and that's her dad. And she said, we're the same person. And
Oh,
he had a dream when he was 19 years old. And God told him, in this moment, you're getting ready to be a father right now. And he had no idea what that meant until he met me. And it was when I was having Jaslyn.
wow.
Yeah. And so he had already felt this wave of something that he couldn't even figure out at the
Right.
time. But he
Wow.
was already called to be her dad. Like, God knew ahead of time that this was her person, to father and parent her. And he
Wow.
came in, and my son, who will be 20 years old, is like, loves Ryan. And, they all see him as that person in their life. And God really restored and brought the perfect guy to come in and just love us as we are and integrate into our family and blend our worlds. And it's just hasn't been easy, but absolutely worth it. It's been a real blessing.
We need to do a marriage podcast and get the boys on here with us because
Yes.
it's something that I think is, you know, the enemy wants so badly for families to break up and uses
Yeah.
so many things, our past and everything against us. And you said it perfect. And it's true for me too. Bobby was the first time I ever felt like he just accepted all of me. Just a quick story. So when we met, I had, I'd just turned 27. I had these two kids. I'd been single for a number of years and just felt like, I was kind of a loser. I had a DUI and I was like, no, I never talked about it. I never told
Yeah.
anybody anything about it. I was so humiliated. Bobby grew up kind of in I always say a Ward and June Cleaver home. Like his parents he didn't have any childhood trauma. He grew up very, what we would call normal Christian family.
Yeah.
And so I was ashamed anyway of having, I was a teen mom and now I'm a teen mom with a DUI. I mean, I just felt like all these embarrassing
Right.
things. And we had moved in together before we got married, and something came in the mail and he opened it because it said something from like the courthouse. And he was like, "What is this?" And I came home and he goes, "You got something in the mail." And I had to tell him. And I was like, this is it. It's gonna be over. I was
Yeah.
so ashamed. And he was just like, "Oh, that sucks." And he'd like, I felt bad for you. He was so sweet. That was one of the first, there was many, but that's something that stands out to me where I like was beginning to bare my soul. I mean, some things you can't hide. You have kids. That's an obvious, like,
Right. Right.
that's kind of out there. So yeah, over and over, he's shown me that, and it's changed me. It really has shown me what it is when we read in the Bible and we hear about like it's love that transforms. It is love. It wasn't condemnation. It wasn't making me feel bad. It wasn't holding it against me. It was like, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you, but it changes nothing. And
Right.
this is what we're supposed to be as believers to everybody, not just our spouse, not just to our children. Me with having my son being gay, when he came out to me, of course, it was a journey to walk through because you have it ingrained in your head as a believer that basically this is like the unforgivable thing you're going to, I mean, it's just, I
Right.
don't want to go into that. But one of the things that the Lord told me specifically about my son was, how do you expect him to believe that there's a God in heaven who loves him unconditionally if you're not showing him that first? And so it just shifted everything for me because he has his own journey with the Lord, his own walk in relationship with the Lord. And
Right.
my job is to show him unconditional love. And I do that. And it started with just me being that way with him, but now it's transformed the way I look at people.
Yeah.
So it's
That's so
just
good.
this crazy, beautiful journey. You are
Right.
amazing.
Oh, you are.
I'm obsessed with you. I was already fangirling you, and now I'm like, I just want to like drive to LA and be your friend.
Let's do it.
I need to. I totally need to. I
That's
appreciate you
absolutely
so much. I appreciate your vulnerability. People are going to be obsessed with this podcast. What is next that we
cool.
can, that people like, how do people find you? Where, tell them every way that they can get every more of you.
Well, now I am an avid Instagrammer. I'm just starting to like try and put myself out on these platforms. So it's all at Nikki Leonti, and I'll be giving updates. I'm hoping to have my book out in the next year, and then I'll be announcing the documentary and different things coming out.
So the best way that people can follow all of the things that you're doing, you put it all, you even put your songs and your links to
yes.
everything on your social media. So we'll link that in the show notes. If you're listening to the podcast, it'll be in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be right below the video in the information. And follow her and just pray for her and her family. And Nikki, I just want to say to you, like, get louder. Keep doing what you're doing and like turn up the volume even louder. So many people need to hear your story. And just thank you. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on and hearing my story and encouraging me. It's so meaningful.
I just appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.